This is TWiT.
More and more signs are now pointing to a pending shift in HTC's future, and it sounds likely that Google might actually be in the mix. Joining us to discuss this is Ryan Whitwam, who wrote an article on the topic for Android Police. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's awesome to get you on. So HTC made a big change, I think it was today, related to the trading of its stock. Explain what happened there, what that seems to be signaling anyways.
So HTC, which is based in Taiwan, they announced that trading of their shares would be suspended tomorrow, Thursday, which is just a couple of hours away there now, I think. And they didn't announce why. They just said some major thing was happening. And so, of course, everybody assumed that it was related to an acquisition, probably Google, which has been rumored, on and off for at least a year or two, and more intensely just over the past few weeks. And there were a few other leaks, not sourced, but, people familiar with the matter say that it's Google. Which would make sense. There aren't really a lot of companies who would have an interest in picking up all or part of HTC. So what we're expecting is, if it is a Google acquisition, they probably will not be taking the whole company. They will take the part that makes phones. So Google could get, supply chain and facilities, manufacturing outfits, and things like that. But possibly the HTC name would remain with HTC, the entity that exists right now, and they would continue to make things, the Vive headset, and other non-phone items, I suppose. So HTC could just cease to exist as a smartphone maker because Google wouldn't have the name. They would just sort of use the stuff that HTC used to have making phones to make Google phones.
And control a lot of the production chain that goes into it, because as we believe to know, as we have picked up over many leaks that have happened, including yesterday's big leak around the Pixel 2, is that HTC is involved with at least the smaller of the Pixel devices. HTC did last year's Pixel devices as well. Is that the advantage here, that it basically puts Google in control of its own destiny as far as its hardware is concerned?
Well, being able to have a vertically integrated product does give you more control. I think Google showed that even having HTC do it last year, they were able to make something pretty great with the Pixel. Even to this day, I think it is the most consistently fast Android phone that you can get. I think HTC and their financial situation has, in some ways, it's backed Google into a corner. Because obviously, if the rumors are true, we have every reason to believe they are, that HTC is making a Pixel phone this year. If HTC is like, hey, Google, thing about that, we're probably going to go out of business. What is Google going to do? They need that phone to exist. Yeah. So they either invest a bunch of money in HTC, or they just buy a big chunk of HTC. And it's a different situation for Google now than it was back in 2011 when they bought Motorola. Now Google has a hardware division, and it's actually headed by Rick Osterloh, the former CEO of Motorola. So Google could sort of take all these assets from HTC into itself, and maybe it'll be, technically Alphabet that's acquiring Google, or that's acquiring HTC, and then all this stuff will just sort of be a separate entity inside Alphabet, and Google will have access to it. But however, the specifics work out, Google is in a position to actually use these assets in a way that they weren't when they bought Motorola.
So the way you describe this, it sounds sort of like they're doing it out of necessity because they don't want HTC to go out of business. Is it possible that they would be doing this in the future? Is this a sign of things to come where they'll continue to buy up hardware companies?
I would think that Google doesn't want to have to, but they've never really been set up to make their own hardware before, and it's possible that acquiring HTC would give them what they need going forward. And hopefully there aren't Android OEMs that are crashing and burning every few years. That would probably be.
Although you never know in this day.
Yeah, HTC's fortunes really turned around there. They made the first Android phone in 2008, and they were a big player for a long time. But just this year, the U11 was a good phone. I think if you look at it in a vacuum, without considering the other things that are out there, it's it's a fine phone. People could carry it and be happy with it. But the demand has already dropped off, and HTC's revenue at this point is 50% lower than it was last year at this time. And last year wasn't very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's dropped something like 90 some odd percent. Their stock value has dropped 90 some odd percent since 2011 when they were kind of at their peak, which is just so dramatic and so unfortunate. I've always loved HTC's kind of design aesthetic, but that hasn't resonated in recent years. A lot of competition on the higher end devices in that same category.
I think they made some errors in judgment in the 2014, 2015 era. They made some phones that had pretty obvious hardware problems and gimmicky features that people didn't really buy into. And they may have burned a lot of the goodwill that they had before that.
Right.
So, even though like the HTC 10 last year, I liked that phone. I thought it was a very nice phone. But they haven't been able to get carrier deals for the last 2 years. Right now, you can only get the U11 on Sprint, and Sprint will take pretty much anything. No offense to the Essential phone.
Oof, man, that was a rough burn. So, I mean, I know that with the Pixel phone, from what we're hearing anyways, is that like last year, I mean, was it exclusive to Verizon last year as far as carrier availability was concerned?
Yeah,
I'm hearing that now this year too.
Yeah, Verizon was the only carrier you could buy from directly, but the Google Store had it, and they had payment plans on the Google Store. So, you could get it in a sort of carrier-ish way, which I think kind of saved the phone from being, kind of just, a showboat thing for Google.
Right.
It was actually something people could buy. And so the HTC phones right now, if you're not on Sprint and you want to buy a U11, you go to HTC's website, and pay $700 for it, and that's just how it is. Nobody should do that right now, though. By the way, don't do that.
Probably not a good idea. Why would Vive not be part of this? Because when I think about it, Facebook has Oculus. They have their premium VR platform. Google, I feel like, could totally use Vive. They've got their smartphone VR platform. Why not have a premium in the Vive? I guess maybe it's just that HTC isn't interested because that's actually doing okay.
I feel like I'm not really sold on the way that desktop VR works right now as a long-term proposition. But it's possible that Google would totally be interested in taking that.
Yeah.
But HTC sees it as something that, even if it's not pulling in a ton of money right now, it's something that could in the future. And it is at least still a product that investors are willing to throw money at, which is not something you can say for HTC's phones.
Right. But Google might be. When are we likely to know more about this? Did they actually say that they have a big announcement to make tomorrow, or is that just kind of
they said a pending announcement. And, you don't usually stop trading of your stock, a week or two before you make your big announcement, especially HTC, which can't really take any more hits to its stock price. So I imagine we will find out this week what is going on. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Ryan Whitwam, you write for a couple of publications. This article, of course, was in Android Police. Where would you like to point people to find all the work that you do online?
You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Whitwam. I will post all sorts of things there. Sometimes just keyboards and not related to phones, but whatever you want to check out.
Right on, Ryan. It's great to talk with you. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about this today. We appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Anytime.
All right. Have a good night.